to gain a much broader view of what life has to offer, it's worth becoming familiar with the Indian concept of the koshas, because we've been conditioned in the West to believe that we're a physical body with a mind, emotions, senses, perceptions. But actually, that's quite a jumbled version. And understanding the koshas enables us to experience life in a much clearer and more harmonious way. And there's much more potential available than we've ever realized. So we've really played a little game, which is a game of limitation. So we remain as the infinite being. That's all we can ever be. So we remain as the infinite, timeless, omnipotent, omnipresent being. That's all everyone and everything is. But we can assume various forms of limitation. So the first level of limitation in terms of the koshas is Ananda kosha, which is the body of bliss. So while remaining as the infinite being, we can actually have the experience of bliss. And bliss is something which is evident in the eyes of very young children. If you look at children of maybe 6 months old or a year old, you can see that they're just in a state of bliss. And that is really the way we begin. And that option is almost infinite, but our true nature is attributeless being. So our true nature is infinite potential, because it's like the cinema screen. You can project any images on the cinema screen, but the cinema screen has no attributes of its own, no forms appearing on it. So the form of bliss, which actually you could say is form or formless, it has the attribute of bliss. So it's infinite bliss, so it's almost infinite, but it has a quality. It has the quality of bliss. So the next level of limitation is the body of wisdom, Vijnana kosha. And the way the body of wisdom differs from our infinite nature is that our true infinite nature is attributeless, whereas in the body of wisdom, which is also known as the causal realm or effortless being, then all forms can arise equally and effortlessly with no judgment, no discrimination. They're just arising effortlessly. So there can be thoughts arising effortlessly, there can be sensations, perceptions, emotions, all arising effortlessly. And we're not judging them, we're just aware of them. And we're aware of them arising in the infinite, impersonal field of beingness or awareness, because that's what we truly are. We're actually an impersonal field of beingness. So with young children, that's how they experience to begin with. So there's the experience of bliss is predominating, but then there's a growing awareness of forms appearing. So there can be thoughts appearing, emotions, sensations, perceptions, and they're all appearing effortlessly and they're appearing equally. So there could be the sound of a car going by, or there could be wind in the trees, or there could be a feeling of hunger, there could be a feeling of tiredness, there could be the sound of a TV, there could be the sound of voices, there could be family members, and all those forms are experienced equally initially. So we haven't compartmentalized them. We haven't created a personal sense at that stage. It is all still impersonal. So everything is just arising. And one of the forms arising is there's the appearance of a body mind. But gradually through conditioning, mainly from our parents and close family members, the use of language actually creates an experience of limitation. So we begin to respond to a name. There's a name which we begin hearing. And then we also witness our mum and dad and family members talking to each other as though they really are human beings existing in time and space. So we think, well, oh, this is quite an interesting game. I'll be able to play this myself. So we enter into that. So at some point, while maintaining the knowledge of our true, infinite, impersonal nature, we start to play this game with them. So if they call us by name, then we respond. We think, yeah, we can play this game as well. So we begin by responding to the name and by learning the way that they're playing the game. And then gradually there are certain things that are noticed. There are certain forms, the color of the hair, the color of the eyes, certain likes and dislikes. And then we hear our parents describing the body mind in a particular way, and then we begin to identify with it more. And through that language and through witnessing the game they're playing, we become familiar with it, and then we become competent at playing it. And then after a while, usually around about the age of 2, we actually lose awareness of our impersonal, infinite ocean of beingness, which is what we actually remain as. And we enter into this mode, which becomes the predominant mode for most humans, which is where they think that they're the human being, and then everything outside the human body is actually nothing to do with them, that it's totally separate. And that's really why children around the age of 2, it's called the terrible 2s, and it's because that version of experience becomes installed and accepted, and we feel a bit angry about that limitation. So we start throwing a few things usually, but actually it never happened, because we remain as the infinite being. And so in this moment, it is still a unified field of experience. So whatever is appearing in this moment, so there could be thoughts appearing, there could be emotions appearing, there could be sounds, sensations, there could be other human beings present in our field of experience. And the truth is that it is still a unified field. Everything is still appearing in unity. Every object, every form, every experience is still arising within the infinite being that you've always been. There actually is never separation. The separation never happened. And so we can actually notice that in any moment. So in this moment, we can just notice all the forms appearing in our field of vision, all the sounds that are appearing, any taste, any sensation at all. We can just realize that they're like waves appearing on the infinite, impersonal ocean of beingness, which we always remain as. So really there is only unity consciousness. There is the option for the subject-object mode. And we can play that. Most humans are very proficient at playing that game, probably too proficient really, because it is only a mode of experience. It shouldn't be primary. What should be primary is unity consciousness. So the experience of the causal body is really the experience of unity consciousness. But what I've just described in terms of the experience of separation belongs to the next kosha, which is called Manomaya kosha, which means the body of the mind. So the mind is a dualistic instrument. And so the mind needs to be present to play the game of duality. And so we actually enter in there initially by making comparisons. So we can compare two objects and we could prefer one over the other. But actually, the more deeply we go into duality, the more extreme the experience can become, to the point where it can result in things like conflict. And so the the mental realm is actually entered by invitation. So everything is like an invitation, and then we consent to that. So we consent to the subject-object mode, we consent to the dualistic experience, and then we become familiar with each of these different modes. So the next level down is the etheric realm, which is the emotional realm, which is known as Prana kosha, which is the body of breath. So that's a vibrational body. And so the etheric realm is actually very similar to the physical realm in terms of the forms, but they don't have the physical component. They're actually existing on a more subtle level. So where there's mind predominance, then the emotions tend to be closely related to the turbulence in the mind. So turbulence in the mind usually results in turbulence in the emotions. And then there's a knock-on effect actually from the emotions into the physical body, which is known as Ananda kosha, or the body of food. So in the physical realm, the physical body, we can experience things like physical pleasure or physical pain, heat and cold, physical exercise, those kind of things. And the thing to learn about the koshas is that where we need to make our camp for the most progressive and happiest experience is in the second, which is in the second kosha, which is Vijnana kosha, or the body of wisdom. Because the body of wisdom is effortless being. So when we rest as effortless being, then elements like telepathy or synchronicity or inspiration or intuition, they can all arise, and they arise in the present moment. And because the body of wisdom is a unified field of experience, so all forms can arise equally in the body of wisdom. But intuition and those elements arise within there. And so we actually find that we're given options within that realm, which aren't to do with duality. So it's a much clearer way to function, because really we're able to access infinite intelligence in the body of wisdom, because our true infinite nature is infinitely intelligent, and we can align with that intelligence. So it really means that life can be taken care of. And in biblical terms, it's like returning to the Garden of Eden, because eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil is actually to enter into Mano kosha, which is the dualistic mind, where we're saying this is good, this is bad, I like this, I don't like this. But actually learning to function from the body of wisdom is the return to the Garden of Eden, because actually infinite intelligence then begins to take care of us, and we don't need to assume responsibility for all the kind of day-to-day things that most people are conditioned to believe they need to accept. And so it makes life much more harmonious. And so the emotions settle, the mind becomes clearer, because the mind comes into alignment with the body of wisdom if we're functioning primarily from the body of wisdom, from effortless being. And also the emotions settle, because they're not following the turbulent mind. And the emotions then become more of a guidance system, because they support things like intuition or inspiration. We get, if something is coming towards us to give us a high frequency experience, then there's a corresponding emotion which relates to that. And so the emotions become much clearer and more settled. So both the mind and the emotions settle when we function primarily from effortless being. And the physical body also becomes healthier because lots of the ailments experienced in the physical sheath are as a result of either mental or emotional turbulence. So that's the health benefit in terms of consciously functioning from the koshas. So the thing to know is that the 5 koshas are always available to us. You know, many people believe they're locked in the physical realm, but actually no one is locked in the physical realm. We remain as the infinite being, and the infinite being has the option to be able to experience through each of those 5 sheaths. And those sheaths of consciousness, or koshas, or bodies, give us the option for different experiences. So we can function primarily through the physical body, we can function or project our consciousness through the emotional body, we can project our consciousness through the mental body, or through the body of wisdom, or through the body of bliss. The body of bliss becomes more available to us the more we become familiar with functioning from effortless being, because effortless being tends to create higher frequencies of experience, and those higher frequencies are actually the portal into the body of bliss. The body of bliss is self-contained, and it's actually very closely aligned to our infinite nature, attributeless being, but it's something which we need to put everything down to be able to enter into the body of bliss. You can't take even things like love or compassion into the body of bliss because the body of bliss is self-contained. But by learning to function from the body of wisdom, from effortless being, and returning to the Garden of Eden, that really is where we create this stability, because we're even though all forms are appearing within the body of wisdom, they're appearing in neutrality, and so we're not disturbed by them. And that's the solid foundation on which we can experience. And then the mind, the emotions, and the physical realm all become, they're actually in service to our infinite nature then, rather than in opposition in any way. And so that's really the possibility that's available. And it's something that we can cultivate. It's something we can learn more about. There is a lot of knowledge on the koshas, but it's important to just be discriminating and use your own intuition when you read or listen to that information, because it's actually quite often given in reverse order. So if you read about the koshas, it usually begins with number 1, which is Annamaya kosha, the physical body. So it's trying to say, actually, we begin as the human being, and then if we're very good, we can move through these more subtle realms until we find our infinite nature. But that's because it's a game of hide and seek we're playing with the infinite self, then it's inverted in that way. Because the truth is, we remain as the infinite being. We never leave the infinite being. We can't go anywhere else or do anything else. All we can do is we can pretend. We can project our consciousness through these different sheaths, and we can have those particular experiences. But we only ever have them. We're kind of looking into those realms. We're not actually present within them because we maintain our status as the infinite being. So even with the physical realm, if you notice, the physical body is available to us. It's maybe sat on a seat or lying in a bed or something, but actually it's a vehicle that we're looking through. So we're looking through the eyes of it. We have these virtual reality elements like the hands and feet that we can do things with. You know, we have the senses available, the mind, but actually we never enter into the realms. We're always looking into them. And that's very liberating to know, because lots of the intensity, certainly of the human realm, is identifying with the body, believing we are the body, and then having the whole intensity of that experience, which isn't true, because the physical body belongs to the physical realm, the mind belongs to the mental realm, the emotions belong to the etheric realm, and we belong to the infinite realm, which is the infinite being, which is infinite, timeless, imperturbable being. And that's really the place to be.